episode of Horror 365. I am your host, the mouthpiece of the Northeast, Jimmy J. Alongside today, I call him the graphic guru, Cory Coffman. And joining us, well, before I get to his name, this other gentleman, I want you to come on down to Harry's Bloody Attraction. You'll have fun. You'll have games. You'll get laid. And hell, you know what? You'll even meet the great coal miner himself. And he's here today, Mr. Chuck Ryan, joining us. Guys, how are you?
Doing well. I appreciate it. Doing well.
Excellent, man. I'm happy to have you on. We're here. We're going to talk Valentine Bluffs, the fan film that you did for My Bloody Valentine, and a whole bunch of other things. But I want to get into it right away. Now, Cory, I know you were on the show previously a while back, so it's like it's almost as if this is the first time again on the show. But I do want to ask Chuck, because I remember what you told us when we interviewed you. Chuck, what was your introduction into horror?
I think it was my great aunt. We went to visit one time, and I had never met her before. And I think I was maybe 7, 8 years old, and she had, I think it was a Frankenstein or Wolfman movie on, some Universal movie, and my dad's side of the family, very, very conservative. And I hadn't really gotten exposed to stuff like that yet, on TV or anything. And I was just enamored. I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I got to talk to her a little bit about it. And then I just didn't forget about that. And then just, when I had the chance to see a horror movie or something scary on TV, I'd be watching it. And then as I grew up, I had to try to sneak things in, here and there, because it just was kind of frowned upon in my household. And then I think when I got to be about a teenager, my mom and dad kind of like, well, this is a losing battle, because they weren't winning the fight against me trying to watch this stuff. And I knew that they started to embrace it. I think it was my 13th or 14th birthday. My dad let me rent for my birthday party, like whatever horror movies I wanted to rent. And I think Child's Play was on that list, couple other ones. And so, yeah, I've just been a fan, been a fan of horror and Halloween all my life.
You guys are 80s horror guys?
For the most part, yeah, me, yeah.
Cory?
Honestly, it's primarily 80s. I mean, he's going to give me shit for it later. So, but I mean, Chuck, how old were you in the 80s?
Let's see. I was, well, it depends on when in the 80s.
You got a 10-year window. I'm just saying, like,
I was between 10 and 20. Let's put it that way.
See, and I'm jealous of that. I give him a lot of crap for his age, even though he's not that old, but he's old, whatever. But that's just something that me and Chuck do. But the reason I ask is because I love 80s horror, but I was born in 87. So like I didn't actually get to live it like the moment. But like I was retro raised on everything from video games to horror movies to whatever. So definitely 80s, but man, there was a lot of good things that happened in the 90s. And then, then you get to dial back and pull in some of the even the older stuff and really pull that in and kind of relive it vicariously in the now. So, but yeah, primarily 80s in a nutshell, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? I am jealous, Chuck. I'm an 87 baby myself, Cory. And you having that's a from 10 to 20. You think that's like you're growing up fully, between that decade. So it's like you lived through probably all the great 80 horror movies and enjoy them, like probably even in the theaters. Like, did you see like Friday 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, all that in the theaters?
No, again, didn't have that opportunity to see movies I really wanted to see in the theater until I was a little bit older. But I still cherish all that 80s-ness. And I do feel pretty blessed, I don't know, maybe a little spoiled just to be able to grow up in that era, that decade, and not just horror. I mean, action movies. I mean,
oh yeah, dude,
you name it, right? We had it all back then.
It was great. It was great. Like going back. I mean, the beautiful thing is now, guys, we can go back and we can watch it. And there's 1,000 streaming services. Whoever thought it would be like this? Like everything's at our fingertips when we were going to video stores.
Yeah.
rent the movies. And that I do miss that. I think I spoke about this a while back, but a couple times over. But yeah, video stores too. You guys remember walking into the video store, going into horror sections?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Spending I don't know how many minutes staring at the VHS movie covers, right? And just be like, wow, this looks awesome. I've never seen it. I don't really know what this is about, but that just looks awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna rent that one. What was do you guys remember renting any 80s horror movies?
Yeah. Um, there was a little gas station not too far down the street where we used to live when I was a kid, and they had a little video section there,
Wait, hold
and
on. A gas station had a video set up in there?
a gas station did, yeah,
Oh my God.
and they had a little horror section, and I remember renting Halloween 4, uh, Child's Play, and I remember at the end of Halloween 4, I think it was after the credits, they showed a little preview for Halloween 5. And I was like, oh, well, we didn't have internet then. You didn't know when it was coming out. Maybe they said coming soon or something like that. And every time I went down to that gas station, I'd look to see if that new Halloween 5 was out. And I don't know, maybe it was a year later or whatever, but um, yeah, had that opportunity. I don't remember how I was able to rent stuff because I remember not having either of my parents with me, and I wasn't 18 yet by a long shot. So it might have been just that loophole where
It's a
the
gas
attendant didn't
station.
care.
It's a
It's
gas station.
Yeah,
Hey, come
know?
on, right, I got right in the back. They showed
Right.
you the feed section too?
Well, hey, those were the days, right? I mean,
Yeah,
where you could get away with that stuff.
no, it was 88 that had to be because Halloween 4 came out in 80. Cory and I were one around that around that time. But dude, I do remember definitely going in the 90s in the video stores. Cory, what was your first horror movie rental in a video store?
Man, I don't know. I did try to thrive off of the horror section because I did feel like it was something that I couldn't obtain. My parents were pretty conservative about some stuff, but my dad, I think, slowly was like, okay, well, if he wants to do this, I'll, kind of spoon feed, and so he kind of filtered a lot of stuff, or we'd watch the TV versions before we ever rented any kind of horror movie. But even then, my parents, I mean, I think it was kind of a trip for them to understand some things. All I remember was being super disappointed. The new releases, there's like 60 of those things on the wall. But all the shit you want to watch, you're like, there's one copy. And you're like, well, who the hell rented out that one copy? It's like, I got to come back next. I got to wait a whole another week because we only rented stuff on Friday nights. And you got to rent like 2, or if there's a 2, like buy 2, get 3, or rent 2, get 3 free, and some bullshit popcorn or whatever. Because I transitioned. We had video review where I was at in Illinois. We had video review, Blockbuster, Hollywood Video eventually came along, and those were and then family video. So there's like 4. It was a big happening movie scene for such a small town. But no gas stations with movies, thank God. But it's funny because now, you're not renting them, but you go anywhere, they're selling, $3-4 movies everywhere. But yeah, renting them and trying to get the deals, and then you get like the little sheet that says what's coming out.
Yeah.
But I would say first movie I maybe watched horror wise had to be one of the Child's Play. It just made sense as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think it was because we snuck around and watched one. Me and my sister did, like Child's Play 2, and then when I wanted to see 3, but 3 was not going to be on TV anytime soon. I think that was kind of it. And then it just devolved into everything else, and around that age, and it was almost like you're not supposed to watch this, but that was the draw for me for horror wise. You're like, you're not supposed to watch this, but you're like, well, I have to watch it, now,
Right?
So. I think from what I can remember, that's kind of how it worked out or started.
Yeah, you know what? That's
Cool.
anything when we're younger, right? When we're kids, don't do this. Okay, I'm gonna do it. Because you said not to. Now, do you guys remember renting or watching My Bloody Valentine, 1981?
I saw it. I saw the TV, the TV version, which would have been the not the non-director's cut. They didn't have a director's cut back then. And I remember the one one of the scenes that really stood out to me was the ending, seeing the cave in, and then Axel trapped on the other side, and like he's getting away after his arm gets ripped off, and he's got that maniacal laugh. That just stayed with me. It's like, even though you know it was a movie, it gets in your head, and you're like, man, that guy's still out there, and assuming that he's alive, we don't know, but yeah, I remember seeing that one long ago.
How old were you?
Made an impact.
How old were you?
Uh 10, 11, 12, maybe.
Me and Chuck talked about this. When I was asked to come on the project, I just thought it was a really good opportunity. I had heard of the movie. I didn't actually end up watching any part of the movie whatsoever until 6 months prior to filming.
Wow. Okay.
And then, and I have to lace it with it. Even though I didn't see it until then, I watched it probably a total. Even though I pick and choose, like picked it apart, I like in terms of looking at certain things, rewinding, and watching every kind of version of it. I probably watched it 13 times, probably into a 2-week span,
Oh my God.
because I was trying to see if I could one up Chuck on everything I could find that we could try to Easter egg into Bluffs. And so I got like that when I'm asked to research into stuff and create stuff, whether it's articles in a newspaper all the way to props or help with information, or hey, can we get a good picture of like, Axel's ring or whatever. It wasn't until then that I actually watched it for the first time, and then I watched it way too damn much. But it was really cool because it allowed me and Chuck to like hit each other up daily. Like, oh, what'd you find? Oh my God, look at this. Well, you think we can find a replica of that hat or this or that or that? And then it just like snowballed. So it became an interesting way for me to be invited into that movie, because prior to that, maybe seeing a couple clips or just hints of the movie or a trailer or two.
That's incredible. I mean, 13 times, Cory. That's almost insane in my book. In 2 weeks, in a 2-week span. But I understand why you did it, and it shows in the film. And I want to say, let me ask this first. 2009 version. What do you guys think of that?
I thought it was a pretty solid movie. I mean, I kind of feel like deep down it was one that didn't necessarily need to be remade, but I thought they did a pretty good job. And then adding in that 3D aspect, that was cool. I thought they did a pretty good job overall. I enjoyed it. Doesn't at all touch the what was done with the original movie. I think definitely an inferior film, but I thought they did a great job. I liked it. I liked some of the twists that they tried to do in it, with the story, and just make it a little bit different, set it apart and everything. And the effects were really, really good. A little heavy on the CGI in my opinion, but
I agree with that. I definitely wasn't a fan of 2009. Cory, what about you? What do you think of the 2000?
I had actually watched most of 2009 prior to watching the original, and thinking, okay, what am I missing? Trying to watch it, but there was certain things that, even though I wasn't trying to, like where Chuck had the privilege of comparing it to the original, I didn't really have that yet. And so I think the first time I watched it, because I only watched it twice, and the second time, I don't know, it was the same thing. I think I watched the second one to see what else we could pull or add to this, film, in a weird way. But there's just certain things that, like, growing up in the 80s into the 90s and seeing a lot of practical effects done, if something is overly CGI'd or just almost lazy CGI'd because they either don't have the money or time to put effects in, yeah, I started picking it apart for CGI aspects of things, whether it was, blood or kills or whatever, because it directly, like, the one film I was always pissed off about was Freddy versus Jason, because they tried to do this blood drop scene in the hallway, and I was like, it's so overly CGI'd, it took away from. There's nothing about this film that just feels good and natural. And I'm like, if I want to see blood dropping on the tile, I wanted to see it stay in there, or flowing appropriately. And when you're able to look at films like that, the 3D one, they tried to overcompensate the 3D, and it's like, well, maybe if we do some of this 3D, it'll take away from the shitty CGI here and there. And so that's what stuck with me from the most part. I honestly couldn't watch it and go, I know what happened part for part on the remake. So
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree with both of you guys on that with the CGI. Again, like I stated, I wasn't a fan of 2009, but I was, and I am. I shouldn't say was. I am a fan of Valentine's Bluffs. I really enjoyed this film, guys. It's you. The continuity is there in this. And before I guess we get into it, walk us through the process of what it was like putting this all together. I guess we'll go with Chuck.
Oh boy. Well, Tom Smith, our director and writer, he first reached out to me to ask if I would play the role of the miner. And it's kind of a funny story. He had met me at a Horror Hound convention a number of years ago and got a picture with me in my miner cosplay. And he remembered that and kind of filed it away for the future. And when he had this idea for doing a My Bloody Valentine fan film, he didn't know who I was though, so he kind of put that out there on social media, and he started asking around. It's like, hey, does anybody know who this cosplayer is? So some people had directed him my way, and we got in contact with one another, and I said, yeah, that was me. And so that's kind of pretty much how I officially met Tom. And I didn't say yes right away because I didn't know who this guy was. Is he just some guy with a camcorder in his backyard or what, you know? But I didn't want to say no because I didn't know what kind of opportunity I might be missing out on. So I just played it really cool. And and as Tom says it, once we got off the phone for the first time, he said to his wife, I don't really think he's interested, which was not true, you know. But then a few weeks later, he got the script to me, and I read the script, and I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of potential there, and then he showed me one of his other short films that he made called Hunting for Justice, and I knew right away when I saw that he's the real deal. He's legit. So that was kind of my introduction to first coming on board. And then I just kind of just jumped in right away. Started talking with Tom on a very, very regular basis, and we started talking about different things that we could, you know, add to the script and the story. We started talking about kills. We just started talking about everything, and then before I knew it, I became a producer on the project because I was just spending so much time on it, um, and that's kind of how that all came on. And then, you know, I don't know how far along it was after when I reached out to Cory and said, hey, you know, would you want to come on the project? Because definitely we're going to need somebody with some artistic skills and creativity to help us design our crowdfunding campaign and all the graphics and everything. And very, very lucky that Cory was out there and was available to us because, man, you know, it's I'm going to go off on a rail, but you know, it takes a team. It's just not one person. Obviously, it takes a team and good people that contribute, and it's such a collaborative effort. So, but yeah, that's anyway.
Oh, it's good, man. Yeah, you're
I
right.
could go on and on.
No,
But,
that's fine. Yeah, continue.
So yeah, and then you know, I mean, shortly after that, I was introduced to Roland Keller, our other producer, and him and I became good buds right away, and just kind of like you know, brothers in arms on this project. And you know, I live in Wisconsin, and everybody else lives on our crew is pretty much in Pennsylvania or in that area. Cory's down in near Memphis, right?
Yeah.
And so you know, it has its the difficulty sometimes with, you know, logistics and things. But you know, when you're doing a lot of the producer type duties, it doesn't matter. You don't have to be there in person, but sometimes it helps. So there was a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of conference calls and everything, and Cory was in on a lot of those throughout the process. And uh, yeah, I mean, you know, it's a lot of time involved, making a film. I can say after participating, I have a huge newfound respect and appreciation for what goes into filmmaking. I mean,
A
hands
lot of hard
down,
work, man.
until you are in it and you see that side of things, you do kind of take it for granted, and it's easy to criticize and nitpick things. And um, but man, once you partake in it and do it, you really understand. Wow, just the workload there. And you know, even if a movie in the end, even if our movie turned out to not be a good film, which I think it turned out to be a really, really good film, uh, you can still criticize things, of course, but I never look down or criticize on the people who made the film, because they put the work into that, and they put their all into it sometimes. And you know, and you just never know how it's going to turn out. But you have to have that kind of love and appreciation to make a film. And just yeah, I look at things very, very differently now.
Yeah.
Um, so
You got to
yeah,
respect anybody that puts together something like any film in general, because it is a lot of work, man. It is a team effort. And you know, Cory, I know Cory does our graphics over here at Horror 365. He does just I keep praising this guy, man. A tremendous job. I haven't met or seen anybody else with the amount of detail that Cory puts into his work and the love for it. It shows. So Cory, I appreciate you, buddy, and I know everybody else out there in the community does.
Thank you.
So really, the guy's top notch in my book. And Cory, when you heard about coming on to this into this film, what was your first thoughts? What ran through your mind?
Well, it's interesting. See, I had followed Chuck on Instagram, so I knew what he was doing. And then when I was seeing a film project, I was like, well, I feel like I had a lot of insight because he didn't just come to me and go, "Hey, we need graphics." Period. He came to me and goes, "Hey, I know you've helped with some crowdfunding campaigns. Um, we need ours to look as best as possible. What do you suggest? What are your suggestions? What have you seen? How integrated were you just outside of graphics with these other projects like Vengeance 2, uh, Never Hike Alone, Fall of Camp Blood, all these Jason-esque movies." And it was one of those things where I was like, okay, cool. Cause usually on those projects, I was brought in after stuff had already started being laid out or worked on. So I'm trying to work in the confines of what's already established because you don't want to reinvent the wheel. You just want to make everything look as best it can with what's there and jump on top of it. With this, my brain immediately started firing on all cylinders. It's like, shit. Well, first off, I don't know anything about this movie, but I didn't tell Chuck that at first. I was just like, I was like, yes, yes, and yes. And I said, this is awesome because he's like, you got kind of free reign to design whatever you want, but all we have a script and some people in place and whatever. And so I was like, okay. So I thought, okay, I get to work on this from the ground up. So it needs to be perfect, just like a business plan. And the first project I think we worked on was like, okay, we needed to come up with a logo for the film project, something we can stamp on everything and say, here's the script, Valentine Bluffs, Valentine Bluffs, And God, dude, we worked on that for a month and a half, just a logo.
Just a logo.
yeah,
Seeing what we can incorporate, what's readable, if it's inverted, you know, if we decide to make it more, in motion or this and that. So once we got that, I almost thought that was it. And then they just kept saying, okay, now we're going to do this. And so they started structuring what was in place. I told them what worked and what didn't work on crowdfunding campaigns that I've been a part of. And then next thing you know, I'm making perk pages, out the ass and we're like, they were coming up with perks. And then I was designing to make it is visually easy to look at to interpret what they were wanting to do. And I think just rolling with that and, or if I was like, Chuck, I can't find a picture of the miner doing this specific motion for this one perk. He goes, I'm going to make my wife take a picture of me doing that tomorrow. Or, and he was
yeah,
on the ball about like, if I needed something, he didn't want me to work for it. He's like, I'm going to get it to you. Give me a day. And then I would get it. I'd make it work and we'd critique it back and forth. So me and Chuck went from total strangers, like Instagram half-ass followers of each other, to like talking 2 or 3 times a day, mostly at night. And then, and of course, those conversations were always, they were 80% work related and 20% goofing off, which thank God, because I was like, this old guy's not too bad. He's a pretty cool cat, whatever.
he's a cool cat.
And, and then it became like, if during the day I was working, I'd be getting voice messages from who I didn't know who the hell this guy was. Some old guy's messaging me from Chuck's, messenger or whatever. And I'm like, who the fuck is that guy? And next thing I know, it's like, oh, Chuck, oh, that's my alter ego. And so it's one of those things that it kept it playful, but you're talking about going from total strangers to like almost best of friends, essentially, like where we can talk about anything, including our families, in such a short amount of time. But I mean, we were put to work together, and then working with everyone else, everyone else is kind of giving their ideas to Chuck. Chuck's filtering it, coming to me. I'm trying to turn something around to give to him to disperse out back to the people he's working with. And that's what we did. It was nonstop. It was like a full functioning company and business. Cause I told him, I said, that's the one thing is I've seen some projects really not get what they were doing because there wasn't that camaraderie or that guy that Chuck was willing to do a lot more than what I think anyone else would be willing to do in anything, like not just, hey, you're an actor, but you're also be a producer, which also, everyone's like, well, what does a producer mean? He dumped a bunch of money. No, he dumped all of his time into this. And he has like, what, 13, 14 kids, right?
No.
No, but I'll put it this way. I'll put it 7. Yeah, 7. Yeah. One for every day of the week.
One kid is a lot. One.
Yeah.
7. Well, that's what I said.
I tell you, Cory was invaluable, and I don't throw that term around lightly. He touched on a lot there, and we became fast friends working on this project, and I think he did way more than was expected of him, and it helps befriending somebody like that too, like Cory, because then you get more straight, honest answers from people. Say, hey man, I'm really backed up right now. There was never any attitude about anything, and Cory would try to fit stuff in as much as possible, and there was always that level of respect between us. And I would pick his brain on so many occasions about, like, hey, what do you think about this? And what should we do here? And it wasn't just stuff about the campaign. Sometimes it was things about just the movie in general, or what do you think about this kill? And I just like bouncing a lot of ideas off him, and he always had answers too. And I like that. You're just not throwing a question out there and then getting a, well, I don't know response. You always, and we had just good chemistry, good camaraderie there. And, and we still do, man. We still, I can't tell you how many friends I've made on this project. Cory's definitely one of the best ones that I have made working on this film. And, I think the work that he's done on it really speaks for itself. When you look at our campaign, Cory's is what he did there that's the face of the campaign, man. In my opinion,
presentation is everything. I always say,
it is.
Yeah.
When you go to a crowdfunding site, that's the first thing that hits you. If you don't like what you're seeing, you're not going to stick around. Yeah. And I think what we did, with the work that Cory did on our campaign, really brought people in and kept them there. And that's just a testament to his abilities and skills there. And I wouldn't really want to imagine what would happen to our film or where it would be right now without everything that he did. And I'm 100% serious about that. Myself and our team is just so grateful for everything that he did, and just being a friend too, and being able to blow off some steam and vent to each other periodically about just whatever, you got to do it to stay sane.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I think we talked about every fan film under the sun. I don't even care who sees this or not. It's one of those things where I told him the goods and bads of how I got introduced to fan films and being involved with them, and then being pulled in every direction when people have beef with each other or whatever. And that's the thing too. It's like, I told him, I said, there's going to probably be instances where, you have arguments with anybody on our, this team. It just depends, and I think, they, I feel like they did me a favor because they gave me some, parameters, and it was just a matter of like, okay, what can you do? And I was like, I gotta impress. Every time I do something, I want to impress the hell out of somebody. But then, you fast forward to all that stuff we did and the culminating of it, and then you're at the tail end of, after the movie's out and everything. Now you're like, okay, we got to Blu-ray, DVD covers. We got to finalize this, do that, poster this, poster that. And now it's almost kind of a sit back, but now I feel like I can sit back on what I did. Now Chuck's trying to, on the tail end of fulfilling all these perks, all these visual promises that I designed, that they, the Valentine Bluffs crew is going out of their way to like fulfill everything that the fans invested into this film,
That's
to get
big.
it going.
That's big because a
And-
lot of time. I'm sorry. Yeah, continue.
No, and you got to remember, I'm throwing this out there because I want people to understand, like, I was the graphic designer on this big project. That's it. Okay. But everyone that was working, in in the, I don't even call it, in the gutter of it, in the meat of it, they're trying to still, they're on the tail end of fulfilling perks. And when did this project start, Chuck? 2 years ago? A little over 2 years ago?
Let's see. I think it was in 2020, and our first Indiegogo campaign launched spring of 2021.
Okay, so
so
keep that in mind. And I tell everyone that.
Spring of
Keep that in mind because
2021, and it's already released. It's already out there, and that's another thing too. But I see a lot of fan films. I'm sorry to cut you off, but you get the Indiegogo going, and we don't see that film maybe for 3-4 years later.
possible.
Perks aren't fulfilled, at least in a timely manner. I've seen that a lot, man, and it's big that you guys are actually making sure that they are fulfilled, and everybody's getting what they invested in.
Yeah, it's a lot of time getting that stuff done, especially with a skeleton crew. It's myself, Tom Smith, and Roland Keller are in charge of fulfilling the perks. And it's easy to come up with things when you first start a campaign. Oh, let's offer this and all that, and then the realization really hits home after the movie's out. It's like, hey, we got to deliver on what we said we're going to do, and we're doing it. And it always takes more time than you expect. We did 2 campaigns. I think the second campaign had almost as many perks, or just about, as the first campaign. Some of those perks I'm making by hand.
Oh my God.
And so that takes time as well. And so yeah, they're getting out there, for sure. We are continuing to have things shipped pretty much on a weekly basis, as they come to us or as we make them. So we're a little behind, but we're trying to keep people updated. So everybody's gonna get their stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a lot of work, guys, and I think after the project's complete, like you talk about, now you got to deliver this, and it just continues. But what you guys talked about, that camaraderie, that team effort, it becomes a family, and it's so important because a lot of egos in this business, and especially that business, the film business. Everybody, lack of a better term, legend in their own mind. Some people are, and they think they deserve more, or but it's so important to stay humble and to focus on the task at hand and not put yourself or your selfish, needs above that. And you guys, I know for a fact, Cory, I know that's you. You're selfless. Chuck, you seem like a great guy. The first conversation I'm really having with you, man. But just Cory talking about you, I trust his word. I can see it. I can tell, man. So you got a solid team just in you two alone. What I'm seeing, and again, it showed in the movie for me. Like I really enjoyed it. So I think you guys did a hell of a job, and even the rest of the cast that I seen in there, which is another question I have for you. Like, how did that go? I mean, I loved Lloyd Kaufman as the mayor. I gotta say, I did really enjoy that and how he was delivering things. So that was cool. And Cory, I know you, my man. Aside from the visual side of things, okay, I know you love butt drugs. Okay, but I gotta tell you, man, you are a natural at acting. Your
Yes,
performance,
he is.
it looks so effortless, and that is what, and it puts some people on the big screen to shame. What I've seen, I'm like, this guy is really good. I never knew you had that side of you, Cory.
Well,
So
it was the first opportunity, and the fact that they gave me the opportunity, I don't remember how it went down because Chuck could probably tell you on. I feel like they had a part, and they're like, I think Cory could do this, and I've done small projects here and there. I'm usually like the right hand man to a bad guy that just kind of grunts or acknowledges or whatever. I don't say much. I'm a lot of one liners, but when they threw me this part, they're like, hey, you got to be a egotistical asshole who thinks he's a hot shot in a small town who kind of pries and says whatever he wants to women. And I'm like, well,
total
that's
opposite
not
of what you are.
that. I was like, well, that's not me. So maybe I can do that. That'll give me, something to shoot for. And I'll put it this way. I had some people in mind that I'm familiar with that I'm like, if I embody this person, I think I know what direction to go. And Chuck knows exactly what I'm talking about. But the opportunity was given to me, and I think it just gave me this kind of freedom, especially with Tom being like, hey, this is what I wrote, but just do and say whatever you want. And the part was cool. And then when I started reading into the part, I was like, okay, now I gotta start asking the wife permission to do some of these
Yeah,
things.
got a little
And
steamy. Yeah.
and I
Right?
can promise everybody the way it was filmed, I don't know how to describe it. I was like, it looks like so much more than it is, and I'm like, no, it's not CGI, but it was the coolest experience, and getting to talk with Nightmare Christie and develop a camaraderie with her the day of, and feel so comfortable to like have the conversation. We knew what we were doing, primarily because I let her do whatever she wanted. I was like, hey, you're a genius at this, and she's like, she literally said, let me control the whole situation. I said, okay, yeah, that's great. And but I never had so much fun. I've been part of some other projects or like a guy in the background, but the way they treated me, the situations they put me in that were super uncomfortable in a good way, like in terms of like, hey, this scene kind of developed and we want to put you in the basement now on this toilet. Are you okay with that? And I'm like, well, I guess, how are you filming it? And they're like, well, how comfortable are you? Like, we want it to look real. And I'm like, okay, next you know, I'm sitting on a toilet bare ass for what, a couple hours. Um,
Yeah.
and this was after some medical stuff like months prior that I probably shouldn't be sitting down that long, but I ended up being, but I was like, I wanted it to look authentic. Everything I've seen in other movies, I was like, if this is the only part I get to do, it needs to be the best of the best. And I didn't think of anything else. I was like, I am literally a blip on the radar of this film. And because I was just more fascinated with watching Chuck, I had to sit on the toilet and watch the miner walk down a hallway of this old decrepit basement and little slats that you can see the light through it. And I was like, I'm literally in this movie. This is freaking nuts. And then the miner has to bust through the door like 30 different times, and I have to act like, oh shit, like
That's
who knows?
it.
And then the next thing I know, he's running at me with a pickaxe, and getting to do the makeup effects they did on me and just the whole aspect of it. And then watching Christy getting to run around scantily clad, and the miner's chasing her, and I'm trying to act dead. I was like, I don't think anyone can really fathom like what that all. It's like, did that all happen? But it was a lot of fun. It was a long night. I was in Pennsylvania, I think, for 2 days, and we shot everything you see me in. We shot in the same day, almost the day into the night.
Yeah. Same day. Yep.
That
That was a
bar
really
scene,
long
and
day.
then
I'd be,
the house scene at night.
I'd be
So
like 12 to 16 hours or something like
oh
that,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
easily.
I think
Yeah.
that was the longest day filming we had because we had to get all of Christie's scenes in and
And
all of Cory's scenes in, not only at the bar, but
yeah,
at the house as well. Um, but yeah, they were great.
it was
They
it
were
was
great.
it was so much fun, and I think that's why it was delivered and received so well on me and Christy's part, because we were supposed to have a part like this big in that whole film, and it got expanded out. Better words, are probably used into just so much more. But getting to talk with her, and like me and Chuck and everyone were like get to talk with her and hear things about conventions, and or even think about what her thoughts were. And I'll let you speak on it. Like, Chuck got to drown Christy, and then I'll let you speak to that whole thing too. On
Yeah,
that was such an interesting story.
Oh,
yeah, talk about that, Chuck, and it also like just embodying that character, man, and being Harry Warden. How'd that feel?
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'll get the Christie question out of the way. That was I had a lot of fun chasing her around, and she was great too. I feel like she was a natural. And yeah, when it came to that scene where where the miner drowns her, I believe that was the very last scene that we did that day, and it was
It had to
well
be.
after midnight.
Yep.
Well after midnight, and everybody's tired but wired, and we got a job to do, so we're going to do it. And as Cory said before, things just kind of unfolded. We actually utilized one of the Airbnbs that we had some of the crew staying at. We utilized that as a filming location, which really wasn't part of the original plan, but it was just this older farmhouse that just had so much character to it. Tom said, we have to film here. We have to use some of this. So we filmed a lot of scenes there, and Christie's death scene was there too, as well as Cory's. And when it was time to do her drowning scene, she told me right before that, I think they were setting up for the scene, and she said, Chuck, I have a fear of drowning, and like a legitimate fear of drowning.
What?
And I said, oh, okay, what do you want to do here? What do you want to do? And I said, first, are you comfortable, doing this? Because her head needed to be submerged underwater for a little while. And she said, well, let's work up like a system where she says I can't remember. She said she's going to grab my leg or just like start tapping my leg once she's had enough. If she starts kind of, freaking out a little bit for real about her head being underwater. And I said, okay, and but we could only do that scene in one take because her hair is dry prior to being drowned. And once she goes in, so that was it. We didn't have time to like, oh, let's dry her hair and style her hair again and stuff. So we went over a lot of prep for that scene. And when it came time to do it, I was choking her, and then that proceeded. I think it was one continuous shot where then I plunge her head underneath the water in the hot tub there, and held it there, which seemed like a long time for me. And John Picos, our DP, he didn't say the signal. I didn't hear word cut or anything like that from Tom yet. So I just kept her head down, and then eventually she did grab my leg, and I pulled her out. So it worked out really good. I think it turned out great on film, and she didn't have any mental scars or anything like that from from doing that scene. I don't think so. But she was a trooper, and putting her what we put her through there for in the wee hours of the morning. So hey, she put on a brave face, and that's tough to do in that situation, and she did it.
Yeah, especially you're afraid of something that you have to do now. It's like,
Yeah,
how many takes is it going to take? And then what you said, it's a one take deal. Like,
one
listen,
take.
that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, we
had to
got to
do it.
nail this one shot, and that's incredible, man. You
Yeah.
guys did that, and I could tell, especially being a long day, too, and all different shots you had to get done, different scenes. That being the final scene and being a one taker after
Yeah.
that long of a day, it's like that's awesome that you guys
Yeah.
pull that off, man. And I thought, man, Chuck, I seen you in that cosplay, in that Harry Warden cosplay, dude. You owned that character. I
Thank
love
you.
it. I love it, man. I want to know what was going through your mind, how you felt actually being that character, and I guess maybe your favorite part of being that character in this film.
Yeah, I felt pretty badass being
Yes.
in the costume, you know. So
Honest.
it didn't feel like it was too hard getting into character, but I will say having to multitask and do producer duties at the same time as having to act, it is hard truly getting into character because just even in between takes and things, your mind is constantly thinking like, oh, what are we doing next? What do I have to do next? So it was hard to separate the two sometimes, but it was a lot of fun to play that character. I had before this movie, I had never been involved in any type of a film project at all. So to be able to jump in head first and work with all these talented people and just be welcomed in, and it was like a cosplayer's dream come true for sure, but it was just a dream come true in general. And yeah, it was great being able to, like, hey, I put this costume together and I get to use it in a movie. And I made the pickaxes that we used in it as well. And
So you made
it was
all the prop? You made just the pickaxe, or you made
I
all
made just the full size pickaxes. Some of the other weapons, there was a knife and a mini rock pick, which Cory got right here.
Yeah.
Those were made by Ryan from yeah, he's got the
There it is.
screen used
The
one right
scene
there.
was embedded in my head like this.
Yeah,
Wow. I
and
can't believe you're joining
Ryan,
us today after that incident, Cory. It's a,
yeah, Ryan from Ryan Schaefer made all those other prop weapons. Did an awesome job, and but yeah, the miner costume is fun to wear, but it has its moments. There's a very, very poor visibility through those tinted lenses, and then you have no peripheral vision. I have fresh air coming in. I rigged up like a fan that blows fresh air up into the mask, and then just forces out some of that condensation and uh, uh, CO2
yeah.
out. And but it gets hot inside the mask. Pretty much from here down is comfortable. From here up is not, and it's hard to hear. So I really have to get close to people to hear, action, cut, anything that people are saying to know my cues. You kind of get used to it after a while, and it's also hard to when I don't speak in the movie, but in between takes or when I'm trying to communicate, I have to express my volume
Yeah.
loudly so people can hear me. So sometimes you do feel like you're off in the corner by yourself because you can't
What's going on
communicate
here?
very well. But yeah, what else about the mask? I was gonna say, it feels like a vice on your head with the
Oh,
straps tied down real tight because you have the hose. The hose is always pulling down on your head, so your neck muscles are constantly fighting to compensate that. So you get a little bit of a sore neck at the end of the day and stuff, but all that was it's
is that
worth
why
it.
you is that why your
It's
neck
worth
and
it.
your traps look so jacked right now, man? Come on. No,
Uh,
dude.
but
What
He
happened?
works out. He works out. He goes to the gym daily. I have to hear. He's like, I can't talk right now. I'm at the gym. I'm like, all right, well,
I have to stay in shape in case
Got
there's
it.
a sequel.
Ah, listen, we don't.
Uh,
Mine are still roaming around, and to me, I got to tell you, man. Dare I say this? To me, Chuck, you are Harry Warden now. My book,
you know,
and that's big because, like,
thank you, man.
I love
Appreciate that.
1981 film, but dude, I enjoyed your performance more in this fanfic.
Well,
And that's me saying that's me. That's again
wow.
objective, but this is me saying that, man. I really did.
I will say that I got a lot of helpful advice and direction from Peter Cowper, who played the
Oh,
miner in the original
mhm.
81 movie, and have befriended him as well. And he's been a really good resource for me, just getting different tips and advice on playing the character. And I felt that was important to know, to kind of get in his head a little bit. And he was very generous with the information that he provided me, and has so many great stories working on the original movie, and his memory is so sharp. Um, it's crazy. So he gave me a lot of good tips, useful tips, from some of the fight scenes that we did to just how to embody that. I mean, you can't really take any better direction than that from I mean, he is the Harry Warden after all. So that was good. That helped me get my mind right a little bit too about playing that character. And yeah, the I was gonna say about the fight scenes. That was my favorite. My favorite thing to do was the final fight scene, but my favorite thing. And I got to thank John Picos, our DP, for filming that beautifully. He just did a great job on the film overall.
Yeah.
But that was one of my favorites. And then Roland Keller helped choreograph all the fight scenes, and he was wonderful because he comes from a wrestling background. He used to be a professional wrestler. So and that's one instance there where the distance made it difficult, because Roland and Brandon Leapart, our sound guy, um, choreographed and recorded themselves doing that fight scene, and then he'd send it off to me, and then my wife and I would try to go through that sequence too, so we try to remember it. And that was interesting. And then Jeff Swisher played TJ, and that's who I have the showdown with at the end. And I got to tell you, that was some of the most fun, not only for like being a cosplayer to be able to do that, but to fight on film. And I think our fight scene there looked very legit. I was nervous about that, honestly. I was, because that's going to be one of the main that you build up to throughout the movie. That's
Plus
that's the
the climax.
payoff right
Yeah.
there. Yeah, and it's got to be solid. It has to be strong.
It looked
And
organic, Chuck. It did. I'm sorry to cut you off. You continue, but it looked organic to me.
thank you. Yeah, I thought I was really happy with the way it turned out. And Jeff Swisher and I had this chemistry as well. I think he comes from a martial arts background. He's a little bit older than I am, but a veteran actor, and just he picked up on the choreography quickly, and it seemed to flow. I felt like we were able to sell a lot of these blows and hits and punches and things, and I couldn't be more proud of the stuff we did in that scene. And I will say that I was the prop master on the film too, which just means you got to take care of the weapons and the prop weapons and all that stuff. So I was kind of in charge of all that stuff. And we did swap out some fake weapons, a fake pickaxe with a real pickaxe, that scene a couple different times. And we had to do that. There's a scene where I swing and miss him with the pickaxe, and it's supposed to stick in the wall, the side of the tunnel in the mine. And it's all rock. So to get the authentic feel for it, you can't hit that with a rubber pickaxe.
No.
It was supposed to stick in the wall, but it's not going to stick into rock. But so Jeff really trusted me on that, with that whole scene, and him with I mean, the trust was mutual. When you're swinging things around and you're getting close to sell it, even though the camera angle on which it's filmed helps sell it, like, whoa, he hit that guy or he just about missed him. That was tricky. And I remember before we did that whole scene there, telling everybody, look, I have to be focusing 100% on what I'm doing here. And I didn't feel like I even had to get into character doing that whole fight scene, because I'm just making sure that I don't hit Jeff or hurt Jeff in reality.
Yeah.
And I just told everyone, I can't even be thinking that there might be someone that's getting too close, that's encroaching, that's part of the crew. And I just said, everybody just stay back. The only person that was kind of going around was our DP, and he was getting some tight angles and stuff. So he knew where he needed to be, and nobody got injured for real. So that was good. And yeah, that was just my favorite scene. Favorite scene to act in. Favorite scene to watch as a viewer too.
No, it was incredibly done, and I got to tell you about the shots in this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed how you filmed, how they filmed this, especially even that opening sequence where it's going through, like the railroad and the mine. Dude, I enjoyed that very much, even though it's so simple. But just everything, the way it was shot, it was done well. It was so professional. I can see this movie, you know, for a fan film. It looks like something that should be in theaters, in my opinion. You know, seriously, the way it was shot, the quality, the acting, um, you know, the job you did, Chuck, man, as Harry Warden, man. Like I said, I can't praise you enough in this role, and Corey, you as well, man, with the acting. Again, you guys are natural, both of you, and it looked very organic. Everything in this film looked organic, and
Thank you,
I
man.
enjoyed it.
You know, the special effects,
Yeah.
Tom and Darren Pastor were responsible for the effects. I mean, just did a phenomenal job. Uh, so many people that put their A game, you know, gave 100% on this. Uh, Liz Saldariga, our AD, was awesome. Um, Assistant directors have a tendency, at least from what I've been told in the business, to be very like people don't like assistant directors because they're always like, hey, we got to go, we got to move, we got to, you know, you only have so much time to before you got to get to the next take. And she was about as nice as you a human being could possibly be in saying, she'd come up to me, say, Chuck, how much time do you need to get ready to get in the costume for this next scene? And I'd say, you know, about 10 minutes or so. And she'd say, okay. And then she'd come on a little bit later and say, Chuck, are you almost ready now? And I'm like, yep, I'm ready. It's just as nice as could be. And you just have to know how to roll with the punches because you're going to have things that go wrong. Cory can attest to that. I mean, that filming that day, there were plenty of things that went wrong. And you have to be cool and collected. And that's part of the job that the AD does, but just the crew in general, you know. When people start breaking down and losing it, then the whole production breaks down.
Most part,
And we had a very, very strong team, you know. Uh I gotta mention Brandon Lee part. He did sound on our film, and he kind of got pulled into that because we had an entire crew lined up um, that had everything. They had um, sound, cameras, everything, and it just didn't work out. They backed out like a month before we were set to start filming.
what?
So we started from scratch and we had to push back the filming dates by I think it was a month or so. So we were scrambling to get people. So everybody that was on our crew, almost everybody that made this film was kind of a last minute deal. And I still think that Tom found some of the most talented people to put this project together. And like you were saying, Jimmy, I think it shows what you see on screen, you know.
That's a challenge.
Um,
I guess that's probably going to answer my next question. I was going to ask you guys, what was the most challenging thing that you faced filming this?
Cory, you want to go first?
Most of the time with me, I was being told what to do on the outside. Now, when it came to actually my filming stuff, the day of, we had a lot to do in a short amount of time. And then, knowing when, like, biggest thing for me is like I had a flight that next morning, and I think we finished wrapping film like at 2:45 or 3 in the morning, and Corey's flight's at 4:30 or 4:45, and or something like that. But I mean, I didn't really encounter too much personally. Now on the outside looking, looking in, like he was saying, the fact that there were fires that happened on set, like not real fires, but just mental fires, like difference of opinions and stuff. The team was always able to come together and say, okay, like, put two boxers in their corner. Okay, guys, cool down. Let's reset, hit the reset button. Yeah, it's 1 in the morning or 10 o'clock at night or whatever. And being able to be like, okay, let's regroup. How are we doing this thing? Because stuff did change. And a lot of that changed because of, you had opportunities that were obvious. Like when the house, for example, You know, me and Christy are originally supposed to die on the floor in front of the fireplace. But when you see how that house was laid out, that was being used as the Airbnb, and what the basement had in terms of just like this production value, that you're like, this, there's production value here. Why? Well, let's just use it. And so you're like on the fly. It's like, well, that's not how this is written, but it's like, okay, well, how can we morph that into a different scenario? And then it takes a team to really work together to figure out, okay, that's not what was originally planned, but okay, if we're going to do this, how can we do it and execute it? And just seeing how eventually how that worked out was awesome. Cause like, I'm like, man, if we would have stuck with the original part, I mean, it would have been maybe a little bit transitionally cleaner or whatever, but like the dynamic that was able to be created with this cat and mouse game with Christy now being running up and down and the miner at the top of the stairs, none of that was written almost until that day. Like that scene of the miner at the top of the stairs, when she finds my dead body, she goes to run back up the stairs. The miner's just there and imposing, and it's like that wasn't planned. You know, that really wasn't planned out, you know, and then the whole cat and mouse game and Cory died on the toilet and you know, Christy being drowned, that whole dynamic was created on the fly because of the production value that was laid itself out. And so the team really had to work through some, you know, because you got people who aren't going to agree. You got a guy who's like, no, this is how we were going to film it, right? And then the director, you know, the director, the writer, whatever is like, well, this and this and this. And it's like, okay, let's figure it out together. And then they did. You got other people in place that are helping make sure those connections stay fluid, and then that they can reach a decision and execute it, opposed to just bitch and complain and then it just fall to nothing. So the testament that I'm trying to get to is just like, if things come up, having enough other members and team members in place to help talk it through and really figure it out. And that's what happened that I seen. And I was only being on set for like a day and a half, 2 days. Now I know
Yeah.
Chuck's seen, you know, a lot more than I did, and he's probably going to speak on it. I mean, the biggest obstacle I think that me and him had talked about was, and I'd go ahead and hand it off to you, you know, with Tom and what Tom encountered with COVID, or you know, and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was shortly after we had filmed the trailer. We did filming specifically to be used in the trailer. And this would have been going back I think late 2020. So you know, it's when the COVID stuff was happening and going on. And um Tom came down with it shortly after that, and he was hospitalized. It was really serious. He was in a coma. He
Oh my
nearly
God.
died. And you know, God willing, he's he came out of it. He had to undergo some vigorous, you know, physical therapy. He wasn't even sure if he wanted to or was going to be able to finish this film. And he ended up making a very good recovery, long, but not as long as it should have been. He recovered a lot faster than the doctors and everything thought. So I mean, that was definitely by far the biggest hurdle that the whole film, you know, had to overcome. And he did it. And but he had to relearn how to sculpt, because he's, you know, he's a special effects artist, and he had to relearn how to use his hands and certain things. So that took a while, and so that was definitely a setback, you know. And he decided, he says, I put so much into this. I want to finish this. So once he made up his mind, you know, we just supported him, and so I mean, that was definitely the biggest hurdle.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, yeah, you know, and you know, Tom gets you know, I said, Tom, you have to share this story. It's not about trying to get sympathy from people. It's a fact. It happened, and it's not something that happens on every film. I mean, it's a reality. And yeah, so I mean, you know, he made it through, and you know, that was huge. That was so huge. Um, so that was definitely the biggest hurdle that our film had to go through. And everything else, by comparison, is, you
Minuscule.
know, not a big deal.
No.
But some of the other things were just, you know, budget, time, all those things that are working against you. I think we shot the film in 10 days. We needed at least probably 12 or 13, but that was what our budget allowed, was a 10-day shoot. And then technically, I think it was 11 days because we had some audio issues and things with filming in the mine. We filmed for 1 day in a real mine, Pioneer Mine in Pennsylvania. And when Tom was reviewing the footage, he didn't like what he saw. And we had talked and said, I think because people want to see everything in the mine. The mine, again, there's a lot of climactic things that happen in the mine. It's got to be good. So we all decided, let's get everybody back together and we're going to go reshoot. And this was 7-8 months later, reshoot for a day in that same mine. And that's what we did. So that costs more money to have to rent that location and utilize that. And we had when our first crew couldn't do the film, we had to change Airbnb dates. You don't get all your money back on that. So there's just, there was a lot of things with budget and time that were kind of worked against us. Just the Indiegogo campaign, that in itself was, a big hurdle in just running it. It's like, if you've never done it, it's like a full-time job. Cory, myself, Tom, Roland, we all sacrificed so much time from our normal lives to do that, but you have to do it in order for it to, and that doesn't even guarantee that it's going to be successful, but you have to put that time and energy in.
Sacrifice, yeah. And it shows. I'll continue, Chuck. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was pretty much my point.
No, but man, it shows, guys. Really, I look at this. This could be a sequel to My Bloody Valentine 1981. I enjoyed it that much. If you haven't seen, anybody watching this, if you have not seen it, please go and watch it. It's free. It's on YouTube. We're gonna give you the links momentarily. But again, I can't praise this enough, guys. And again, I'm not just saying it because you're here, you're on the show. I'm saying it because I mean it. And it's just so crazy what you can do with a small budget if you have passion. And I think we see that a lot nowadays with some of the, lower budget films that have been coming out in the horror community. Terrifier, the most, I guess, recognizable film as of late, Terrifier 2. But horror was technically, it's a low budget genre. I mean, if you look at some of the films in the past, most of the greatest horror films were low budget. I believe Friday the 13th, but this one right here, to label it a fan film doesn't do it justice. In the 80s, Chuck, this, growing up, horror fan, it was frowned upon, in the 80s. Now it's glorified. And we are in this time period right now. There's a resurgence of horror, and we're getting some quality shit, for lack of a better term. I'm going to throw it out. If we get some quality films out there, and you guys, I need to see a sequel to this. I need to see something else. Are we going to see something else in the future?
Well, if you see our ending, I'm gonna leave it at that. If you see our fan film and you see how it ends, I think that there's
it's open.
There's definitely a possibility there. So let's leave it at that.
And then the fact that if you really think about it, I mean, is there a time where you could actually? When was the last time you watched a horror movie in general and it not have some type of back door that's open? I feel like you always need to leave it open. And me and Chuck have talked about it, but I mean, the way Chuck runs that scene at the end, I mean, it was super cool anyways.
It sent shivers down my spine.
It was really cool. I mean, so yeah, Chuck's gonna know more than me. I told him, I said, if something, if and when does happen, I said, I'll be ready. I'll create that new folder that says Valentine Bluffs 2 or whatever.
There it is.
And we'll start all back over. But it was for me, man, it was a fun experience, being able to start on a project in the beginning of it and help it through, and then just being invited to be on set. Next thing you know, I'm in the movie, and I was just like, and these guys were awesome. And and then and here's the thing too, and a lot of people don't understand this, is if you're brought on to help with a fan film and you're taken care of, like physically, like just they treated me like awesomely. And I was always like, oh, what else can I do? What else can I do? Like when I'm on set, I'm like, I'm not gonna be one of these like, I'm an actor, just calling me out of my trailer bullshit. Where's my water? And I was like, what else can I do? Because sometimes I felt like I was like, I need to do more. They're like, you've done enough. Like you need to just. We invited you out here, and we're gonna have you. But I was like, man, I got to do more. And they're like, no, man, you've spent hours and hours and hours doing these graphics. So they treated me like a king out there. It was amazing experience, and getting. And that's where I'm getting at with this is how you're treated throughout a project, regardless of when you're brought in. I think really is a testament of you'll figure out who the people are around you that actually give a shit, and long term, because you could do a project. They could, let's say the project paid or whatever, and then next year you're like, okay, thanks, you're done, whatever. I've been a part of plenty of those. But when a project actually like takes the time to bring you out or to do this or to do that, because I live in the middle of nowhere. Everyone, Chuck's in Wisconsin, everyone else is in PA. Cory's in the butt crack of the United States, trying to make sure he doesn't get ran over by whoever else is coming into the country. But it's like it's one of those things where it's like, like these people treated me so well, and Chuck. I don't know what Chuck could do to not go a notch down on a totem pole kind of situation, because it was pretty awesome. And then shit, we're going to Texas Frightmare in a couple weeks, and if you want to see the Miner in person, the Miner in Valentine Bluffs, and like what you were saying, Jimmy, the Miner, like when you think of Miner, that this is the first guy that just comes in your head, and there's gonna be an opportunity in Texas, and I think we're gonna have a good time out there and catch up with some people and hopefully get to talk about the film even more. And Nightmare Christie will be out there, so. Oh, and side note, why didn't anyone go over with me? Like, was anyone sending me videos on me and hers fight scene? Because I thought we had some pretty good fight scene, and there was no predetermined choreography of this fight.
I mean, I enjoyed it, Cory. I did. And I just another note from this film. I'll never give you some beer money and tell me to go get me some beer.
Okay, now real quick, you know what? I've had a lot of arguments with people about that. And do you guys remember Black Sheep with Chris Farley?
Yeah.
Okay, I embodied that scene in my mind because I was thinking about when he goes around the corner and he's trying to politically help his brother, and he actually drinks all the alcohol that those kids are drinking because he's trying to get them not to do it. That's what I was doing. I was thinking beer. I didn't want these kids to squander their funds on alcohol. So I thought if they have no good where to put the money, I'll just temporarily hold on to it.
He was being a responsible citizen. Yeah.
There you go. I mean, it's always for a good reason.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. Cory mentioned we're going to be at Texas Frightmare weekend. We got a couple other conventions that we're going to be doing this year too. Flashback weekend in Chicago. The Valentine Bluffs team will be vendors at that one. Also Horror Hound weekend in August. And then let's see, I'll be at Crypticon in Kansas City. I think that's in July. So definitely doing a few conventions this year. Excited to meet up with my convention buddy Brent Edgett. He played Jason in Fall of Camp Blood, and also did some makeup effects work and did a bunch of stuff on the movie Roseblood. Acted in that one too.
Yeah, he was Michael Myers. It was Michael
Myers in Roseblood. Yep. And so yeah, I'll be good to get together with him. Haven't seen him in a while. And my other buddy Clint Tacy from Ink Mares. Clint did some perks on our film too, on our Indiegogo campaign. good guy. Another those two guys too, like Cory. Just it was awesome to pick their brains and just to give, you know, hear their opinions and takes on different things and give advice and input. And that's just it's so invaluable to having people like that around you, you know, whether they're involved directly or indirectly. It's really, really helpful, and just take it all in, you know. So yeah, it'll be good to see those guys. And Cory, I'm going to see you in a couple of weeks in Texas, so that'll be fun. Looking forward to that.
So you guys got a couple conventions coming up. Hopefully I'll see both of you down the line. But Chuck, okay, my man, before I let you go, a little segment I told you about, 2-minute drill. We set this timer right here, and you got 2 minutes to answer these questions, and it's no right or wrong. It's the best answer, your best answer. Are you ready to rock and roll, Chucky?
Let's do it.
Let's go. 3, 2, 1. Favorite horror icon?
Harry Warden.
Favorite slasher?
My Bloody Valentine, 81.
Weapon of choice?
Pickaxe.
To remake or not to remake?
Not to remake.
Dark alley in New York City. Who do you want to have your back?
Cory Coffman.
That's a good answer. Best horror personality?
Give me the next question. I don't know.
80s or 90s horror?
80s, sure.
Favorite psychological horror movie?
Silence of the Lambs.
Favorite horror movie quote?
Put me on the spot here. Little Chop Top maybe from Texas Chainsaw 2. You're my fave. I don't know.
Scariest horror movie you've seen?
Oh, that's tough. That's tough. Session 9 always sticks out. Maybe that goes into a little bit of that psychological one too, but that creeped me out when I seen that one.
Gotcha. Best horror voice?
Freddy?
Universal monster of choice?
Wolfman.
Wes Craven or John Carpenter?
Gonna go with Carpenter.
Favorite? No, yeah. Best horror movie score or theme?
Oh boy.
All right, we're at time.
I don't know.
The top right there. You can answer it.
Some of those I gotta think about.
Yeah,
he got so much further than I am. I got to like question 5, and I was like,
yeah. You're like, New York? No. Oh, but yeah, yeah, it was pretty good. That was pretty good, Chuck. I know some of them have you thinking a little bit, so it takes a little longer. And purposely, I do that.
Maybe I'll have some answers next time I see you. You know.
No worries, man.
Give me some time.
Throw it out there real quick. Who is your horror movie crush? I got both of you that question, Cory and Chuck. Horror movie crush.
Chuck's gonna be thinking about this for a while, but and I
can't say Nightmare Christie, okay? No, anyway.
I know that's I kind of figured. For legal reasons, I can't say that either. But honestly, my favorite is the girl. I'll argue to the day I die about it. Every time I see a post, it's like, who's your favorite final girl? Or who should have never died in a Friday the 13th movie? And that's JJ from Jason Takes Manhattan. That rocker chick was so awesome in every which way. And I'm like, why the did you kill her? I was like, no. I was like, I get the kill was kind of cool, but I was like, I've always been pissed off about that. And I'm like, dude, she just had that whole dark hair rocker chick, just all about it. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. You can have the most scantily clad lady in front of me, and I'm like, nah, JJ. So JJ from Part A.
JJ, dude, she gave me that Joan Jett, Stevie Nicks vibe.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I love it. All right, what about you, Chuck?
I'm gonna have to go with Tina from Halloween 5.
Okay.
Yeah, she rides in the car with who she thinks is her boyfriend, but it's actually Michael Myers wearing the wearing the mask. Yeah. And I actually got to meet that crush at the H40 convention. Forget how many years ago that was. 4 or 5 years ago out in
That was in Los
California.
Angeles. Yeah, or not Los Angeles.
Yeah. She was cool. That was fun. It's fun meeting
All
her.
I hear when you said Tina, I hear Danielle Harris says, Tina. That's all I hear.
Oh, right.
All I hear in my head, bro.
Well, and I don't know if she actually died. Then we don't know that. I mean, we assume, but she got roughed up a little bit by Michael Myers, so we don't know. Maybe she survived.
Nobody knows. We'll find out. But all right, other question, and then we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. Junk food of choice. When you're watching a good horror movie, what's your go-to? Okay.
Doritos or popcorn.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cory?
I don't know, dude, because I have a little bit of what doctors would call a little bit of a weight problem, right?
No.
Come on, man.
I know.
You're just big boned.
I'm just big boned. I don't know. It really depends. I mean, I feel like I've always been a closet Dorito eater forever. But what's really weird is like I will eat and like they don't taste like they used to, but I will down a whole pack of Golden Ritz crackers if you let me. That and like just the sides, like it's just nothing on them. Just butter.
Just plain? No,
Yeah.
Wow.
I can have them plain, but man, with cream cheese,
Right?
Ritz crackers. Oh man.
But then you're like, hey, it's cool. There's 3 more cartridges of that shit in the box.
Reloaded it.
Yeah, it's like you put one away. You're like, oh, that was disappointing. There's more. There's always.
Oh man, that's good stuff.
So those are
Cool
good.
Ranch Doritos for this guy too. But yeah, guys, it's been a blast talking to you. Chuck, I got to ask actually both of you guys. 10 years from now, where are you, Chuck? Where do you see yourself?
Maybe I'll still be cosplaying then. Who knows? Maybe some of my kids will take over the throne. Who knows? I don't know. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Think about what I'll be doing then, but I know all my kids won't have graduated from high school by then. I know that for sure. So got a ways to go before that happens.
Chuck will be 75 going to his last year.
I mean, yeah, 7? Jesus. Oh my goodness. Please, man, throw him some extra jingle. We need to pay tuition, guys. He did an incredible job in his film. Throw Chuck a little extra jingle there in the Cash App with the Venmo. No,
I'll take it.
Listen, don't turn it down, Chuck, please. Cory, 10 years. Where are you, buddy?
I better be driving an old 66 pickup and just hitting up conventions and just showing off a bunch of shit. I don't know if I'll be cosplaying, but I really hope that I'm out of the rat race that's called a full-time job, and just doing the graphic art stuff, but for everything that I want to help people with. I think doing what I'm doing now, minus the full-time gig during the day, because that eats away a lot of my time, and hopefully just convincing my son to still hang out with me. I got one kid, so I got one shot at doing this right. So he's 13 right now, so he'll be 23. That'll be in no time. Just hopefully I can be in my old pickup, checking on my son, making sure he's just kicking ass and whatever he's going to be doing, and then hopefully I can still kind of squander to a couple conventions and impress people with my knowledge of Friday the 13th or lack thereof. So
there you go.
That's incredible. And listen, he's got a good pops. And then your 7 children, Chuck, you should be proud, man. They should be proud. Their father, you seem like a really great guy, man. It was a pleasure.
You, man.
It was really a pleasure talking to both of you. Thank you so much, guys. If you haven't done so already, what are you waiting for? Check out Valentine's Bluffs. I believe the YouTube is Wheeze in Hollywood. Is that it? Wheeze in Hollywood? Am I correct on that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. Wheeze in Hollywood.
Yep. WEEZ in Hollywood. Check them out. Subscribe to the channel. Valentine's Bluffs. It could, I'm telling you, I swear on everything I love, it could be a sequel to the original 1981, and just incredible work, guys. Thank you so much for taking the time. And follow these guys. Where can they find you?
Yeah, find me at Instagram, Chuck Ryan Cosplay. Also, our Valentine Bluffs fan film. Just do a search under that on all social media. You'll find us.
And Cory?
Mid-South_Maniac, Facebook, Instagram. I'm sure I'll hook it up some other places too, but that's the primary spot, or even DeSoto County Ghostbusters on Facebook and Instagram. I forgot I'm the president of that damn thing. So you can follow us on there for all this awesome charity work that we do through there. And then, just follow me. Not a lot of cosplay yet, but I'm sure by the time Texas Frightmare rolls around, me and Chuck will be messing with some people there. And then just a side note, not that it really matters, because, Chuck was the star of a movie. Awesome. This month, Mario Brothers Back in the Game on YouTube will be dropping this month finally.
Finally,
if you want to see, if you're tired of watching the animated stuff and you want to watch real Mario, follow that at Mason Studios on YouTube, and you'll see all those weird films I'm in outside of this awesome one. So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
It's a Mario. Let's go. That's what I'm talking about. I can't wait, guys. I can't wait, Cory, to see that film. Thank you so much once again taking the time out for us, horror heads. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for celebrating horror. Not only in October, but 365. We're going to see you next week.